When did your lips last remember desire? What if 30 silent years cracked under one shy glance? If a kiss returned, would you risk the life that forgot it? Good evening. I am Eleanor Reed, 74, in Portland, Oregon. I kept a school library for decades and now I am retired. I share a quiet house with my husband Martin, 72. We live more as neighbors than as lovers. At home we pass without touch. He reads the paper. I fold laundry until it feels like prayer. We raised 3 children and then the rooms went still. My body did not stop wanting. It only grew polite. Last spring my sister in Ohio fell ill. Martin said I should go and said nothing more. I packed a small suitcase and a pouch of old letters. On the train I watched the river and counted the questions I had swallowed. After my sister dozed, I walked the old streets. The school gate was smaller, the oaks were larger. A man paused there, tall and careful, with a smile that knew my name. He spoke my nickname the way a porch light says welcome. James Whitaker, the quiet boy who ran track. We sat in a diner where the clock hummed. He spoke about the small workshop he runs. I told him about grandchildren and the winter inside a silent marriage. He listened like rain at a window. He had been widowed 6 years. I felt an ache for his days and an ache for mine. He laughed when the waitress called me miss. He said I looked lighter than the girl who worried about grades. I said he looked like a man who learned to be gentle with time. When I stood to leave, he asked to send a picture now and then. I wrote my number on a napkin. Back at my sister's, a message arrived before the kettle boiled. He wished me a kind night. I pressed the phone to my chest. A week later I returned to Portland. Martin asked about my sister and faced the news. Morning brought a photo from James, the oak by the track. I laughed in the kitchen and felt my face wake up. Days leaned toward the hour his note would arrive. He did not cross a line. He asked what tea I liked, and whether the library ever smelled like dust and rain at once. I told him my hands missed stamping the world approved to go home. When he said he might come west for a tool show, my heart startled like a bird behind glass. I said the roses in June were worth the trip. He said he would walk slow if I would walk with him. I imagined the city blocks opening like a book to the right page. That night I traced the silver at my temples. The mirror held a woman with riverbed lines and eyes that still asked. I thought of the years I was a good wife and a quiet wife. And how those words are not the same. I set the phone on the sill and let the air cool my throat. A train horn sounded far off. I pictured a platform, 2 people who had already waited most of a life. And the small brave act of stepping closer. Something unfroze. I did not know where the thaw would run. I only knew the river inside me had started to move. That felt true. The week he arrived, the roses opened like small lanterns. We met by the fountain where the air tasted of wet stone. He said the show was busy and still he had hours to spare. I said time always slows when we choose to notice it. We walked without destination, 2 late beginners. Careful with steps that wanted to hurry. We crossed bridges and counted boats. He asked about the library stamp. I missed the thump on a page that meant go home. I asked about the steady patience of wood. How a hand learns the grain and the grain answers back. He listened to me as if each word had warmth. I let silence travel between us and felt its kindness. On the hill the wind lifted my hair. He reached to smooth it, then drew back. I took his hand and placed it to my temple. It felt like a promise I had not dared to make. We sat beneath the roses and shared a sandwich and a timid laugh. The city kept its distance as if granting permission. At the river we found a bench. A gull yelled and the water kept repeating itself. He said my name and stopped. He tried again, and the second time his voice did not shake. He asked if he could kiss me. The world did not tilt, but it did become clear. I said yes. His mouth was gentle and surprised. Mine remembered how to answer. A small storm rolled through me and left everything washed anew. We parted at dusk. His taxi light blinked and he lifted 2 fingers. The way he always did in school photographs. I carried that gesture home like a delicate dish. Martin asked if I had eaten. I said yes, and he turned the volume up. In the bathroom mirror my lips looked younger and a little uncertain. I touched them with the back of my hand and shut my eyes. After that day the city was full of tiny bridges only I could see. I crossed them in grocery aisles and at bus stops. My phone woke with his questions and with his careful jokes. He did not press. He left space, and inside that space my hunger stood up and stretched. I slept and dreamed of my own face changing expression until it landed on joy. I did not feel wicked. I felt awake. The marriage I lived in was a long hallway, with the lights on a motion sensor that never noticed me. With James the First was a doorway. I began to write truth in a notebook, a few lines before bed. I wrote I want to live where my name sounds like a home. I wrote I will speak before I disappear. At sunrise I walked to the river alone and promised myself I would not lie to the one person left who could save me. The gulls turned and never hit the water wrong. I went home, made coffee, and waited for the right hour to say what had become true. My hands trembled. My voice would not. I folded a towel slowly and remembered the first book. I checked out, the bright card pocket and its soft sound. Life tried to be ordinary. The extraordinary waited in plain sight. I could meet it. Dinner was quiet until the fork clicked on the plate. Martin asked about Ohio again, and I answered with fewer words than truth required. I set my glass down and felt the table steady me. I said I need to talk. He stared at the news and said say it. I asked when he last kissed me. He did not look up. I asked when he last reached for my hand. The air thinned. I said the sentence I had rehearsed on the river path. I want a divorce. Martin finally faced me. He asked if there was someone else. I did not answer, and that was an answer. He said we had a decent life. I said decent is a coat that fits a chair, not a person. I said I could no longer wear a life that never warmed my skin. He raised his voice and then dropped it, surprised at himself. He asked what the children would think. I said they were grown and would have to trust that their mother was a person before a role. He told me the neighbors would talk. I said they already did and that I had run out of fear. He said I was ungrateful. I said I was alive. That night I slept on the sofa and watched the room turn from blue to gray. At dawn I wrote James a short note I need to choose truth. And then I will tell you more. He wrote back I will wait where you can see me. I breathed until the tea cooled. I stood and called an attorney, whose name I had copied on a slip of paper weeks ago. The first meeting was a room with soft chairs and blunt facts. The past could be honored and still be over. Paper would have to move, and kindness would help but was not required. I walked home with my shoulders lowered. My phone buzzed. It was our eldest, Ruth, asking if I was all right. Martin had called her and afraid. I made coffee and told her the truth. I said we had not been a marriage for decades. I said I was sorry for the ways the absence had shaped her childhood. Ruth did not speak. Then she wept and asked how I endured. I said I folded laundry and volunteered at school and forgot to want. She came and sat with me on the floor like she was little again. She said if you are leaving, you will not do it alone. The week after, Martin moved into the guest room without a word. We divided drawers and the calendar. He stopped asking why and started asking when. I answered gently because rage had already had its turn. At the courthouse we stood in the same line and looked at different futures. The clerk stamped papers and did not meet our eyes. The sound was the same one I had missed at the library. Approved to go home. I walked out to light rain and felt water find the curve of my jaw. The world did not clap. It did not punish. It allowed. That night I sat on the back steps and texted James the first I'm free to be honest. A minute later he wrote I am grateful for your courage. Sleep. Tomorrow we plan a walk and do it slowly. I went to bed and for once the dark did not feel like a lock. We carried my boxes up narrow stairs that made us laugh. James labeled shelves with painter tape. He cooked a simple soup and set the table, as if we were in a small restaurant that knew only 2 names. We ate slowly and listened to the fork on the bowl. After dishes he asked if I wanted to dance. There was no music so he hummed. We moved in the living room carefully. My cheek found his shoulder and stayed. He asked if I was tired. I said not in the way that matters. In the bedroom he did not hurry. He asked what felt safe and waited for my answer. He touched me as if I were learning a new language. I told him when to pause and when to continue. My body answered in warmth. We rested when we needed to and tried again. It was not young. It was alive. Later I cried without shame. He wiped my face with the edge of the sheet. He thanked me for trusting him. I thanked him for listening. We slept with the window cracked and the night agreed. Days found a rhythm. We shopped for fruit and learned each other's pace on the river path. James stretched in the mornings and invited me to join. I felt deep muscles wake. My knees complained less. We laughed more. My skin brightened and my shoulders lowered. I began to crave water and sunlight, and the steady pulse we made when we walked side by side. We spoke about doctors and how to be careful. We decided to keep tenderness as our measure, and to stop when breath asked for time. We kept a small notebook by the bed and wrote what comforted us. He wrote warm hands. I wrote slow beginnings. We read those words aloud and smiled. At night we lit a candle and talked about the ordinary. Sick neighbors. A loose drawer. His habit of saving rubber bands. My habit of tucking receipts into books. I learned the notes of his laughter. He learned the quiet place my mind goes before sleep. One evening we packed a picnic and watched the city turn its lights on. He asked what I wanted now that the hallway was behind me. I said to keep my name and my wonder and to write a page every day. He said he wanted to build fewer objects and more mornings. He reached for my hand and heat gathered in my palms again. When we made love we kept reverence near. We checked words and breath. We let gratitude stay in the room. The world outside kept its noise. Inside, our bodies remembered they were homes. That knowledge moved through me like weather finally matching the season. On the first rainy Sunday, he found an old record at a thrift shop. He cleaned it with care and we played it on a tiny player that clicked. The song was full of 100 rooms I had never visited. We did not dance. We sat close and listened until the needle lifted. And the quiet afterward felt like a future I could trust. We kept choosing slowness, and slowness kept choosing us. It made room for breath, for laughter, for a quiet yes. A year gathered around us before we noticed it. On the morning of the first cold wind, James pressed a hand to his chest and sat down. His face went gray at the edges. I called for help and spoke clearly and softly because I had to. The ride was fast and the hallway bright. In the exam room he squeezed my fingers and told me to tell the doctor the truth every time. Tests took hours and finally a nurse smiled. A warning, not a calamity. Rest, caution, the ordinary vows of a careful life. We went home with instructions and a gratitude so wide it hurt. We made tea and watched the cups steam. We promised to keep our steps small and still keep stepping. The next weeks were quiet. We walked to the corner and back. We kept tenderness as the rule in every room. When we held each other, we counted breath together. We learned to laugh without moving too much. I placed a chair by the window and read aloud while he closed his eyes. Sometimes he finished the sentence for me. The way you do when you already know how the story chooses mercy. On the first day he felt stronger. He brought out a plain ring. He said there is no prize for delay. He wanted paper and witnesses. And the simple words that admit what is already true. I said yes with my whole mouth. We stood in a small garden behind a courthouse. Ruth brought flowers. A clerk read the lines and a bird heckled us from a hedge. We all laughed and wiped our eyes. We signed. It was done and it was beginning. After the ceremony we ate soup at a diner that did not care about our celebration. And so suited us perfectly. He called me by my full name. I answered with his. The world felt level. That night we lay close and thanked the bodies that had carried us to this hour. We kept our pace easy and our praise abundant. The room was quiet and full, like a chapel with no walls. Life after vows was not grand. It was shelves to dust. And a calendar to mark and a new recipe that almost worked. It was the steady grace of choosing and choosing again. When we made love we listened to caution and also to joy. Nothing rushed. Nothing hid. Age did not cancel desire. It taught us how to hold it. Sometimes I thought of Martin with a tenderness I could not have managed before. I wished him a late kindness, a light in his own hallway. I wrote my daily page and stacked them in a shoebox. The stack grew heavier. So did my trust in the morning. One evening we walked by the river where the gulls scold boats for being boats. The air had that clean taste it only has after rain. James asked what I wanted most now. I said to keep waking to wonder, to keep finding words that fit. The life we made. He said the same and he kissed me, slow and certain. The water kept repeating itself. I let it. I had learned how. On the way home we bought milk. The cashier noticed the ring. At the door the key turned and the click felt like home. If anything in video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your simple words can become a ripening wisdom that changes someone else's life. If this video reminds you of a family member, friend, or acquaintance, please share it with them. This single video can offer a little comfort and great courage to those who are struggling alone. You can't buy health, but you can hit the subscribe and like buttons, a wise choice you can make right now. If you'd like to join us on this journey of ripening wisdom, be sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. I am truly grateful to be a part of your journey toward a golden, ripening life. Your actions today can create a different tomorrow. Thank you for joining us today at The Wisdom of Ripening. We'll see you in the next video. Always stay healthy and have a day of grace and dignity.